Hi, this is Coach Aaron Saft, the Running is Life podcast. My apologies to you guys. I am under the weather, and so I wanted to get this podcast out, but I did minimal talking with Natalie Daniel here. Natalie completed the GML 200. We get into talking about the route, and she does a great narrative of kind of step by step, section by section. She went through this amazing journey for 200 miles, a journey that I got to be present for, and am super grateful for that, to be there for her and be a part of this. But as I said, I kept my talking and question asking to a minimum, just because I spent most of the conversation coughing and blowing my nose, so I muted myself for the most part. But that said, I didn't want to take anything away from Natalie's amazing accomplishment, and I certainly wanted to get this out to you all. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation, enjoys Natalie's story, and connect with her at whatever level you do. So I'll give you my conversation with Natalie Daniel. Natalie Daniels, how are you, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm a little sick, so I'm going to let Natalie do most of the talking. I'm sure if I asked her that question a week ago, the answer would have been very different. But an awesome route that you came up with. Why don't you talk a little bit first about you? Tell us about Natalie, and where did Natalie start her journey to getting to do a 200-mile run?
Well, as many people might already know, I I've been running since probably junior high, and I've taken breaks here and there to have babies and stuff, but pretty much running has been my thing since I was 14. I've always been really active. It's just kind of my way of escaping, and it's also my way of working on my mental health. So, and just, I would say around 2014, I discovered trail running, which has allowed me, it's actually helped my mental health even more, getting out in nature. I have my dog that I run with quite a bit. But yeah, and I started out running roads like many people do, and with the 5K, half marathon, and then tried to qualify for Boston a couple times. Realized I don't like to run fast. So I figured I had friends that were. I had one friend that did the Tunnel Hill 100 the first year it was out, and uh, I was like, well, that sounds really amazing. And I don't want to run fast, so I'll just see how far I can run. Start out with a 50K, and I'm giving the fast forward version. But next year I did the my first 50 miler in 2016, and then just kept on going. I think I did the 24-hour in 2017 just to see how many miles I could get. I did a little over 100K, and then 2018 I did my first 100. And 50K is probably my favorite distance, but I do like to see how far I can run. Um, and then with these, the longer self-supported things, I would do a lot of 50Ks during training for 100 milers and stuff. But I think these things came about more during COVID, when I remember Georgia Death Race was canceled, and he recommended, well, why don't you go run the Foothills Trail? So I said, well, all right, it's about the same amount of distance, same amount of climbing. Already was trained, and I did that, and it was really, really enjoyable. I discovered that I don't mind being out on these trails by myself for really, really long periods of time. I don't mind being out at night. It's kind of weird with my headlamp. When I remember things, it's almost like I remember it in the daylight, even though it's dark. I don't know if that makes sense. Um, but then, so I did the Foothills Trail, and then I heard about this thing called the Brutes Challenge, and that includes and that's what's the Blue Ridge Ultra Trail Endurance Slam, is what that stands for, and it includes the Foothills Trail, and then you got to do the Georgia Loop and Pitchell that runs from Mount Pisgah to Mount Mitchell, and then the Massanutten Loop and Scar. I think that was all of them. And so I was like, well, I may as well just try that. Well, in order to get credit for doing the Brutes Challenge, you have to do it all in 1 year. Well, I did the Foothills Trail in May and didn't hear about the Brutes Challenge until like September. But I had races that had, been rescheduled, and I had to do those. So I didn't do the Georgia Loop until like December. So I had to kind of cram all the other runs into just a couple of months. And we talked about this on a previous podcast where I attempted the Massanutten Loop, fell, hit my head, had to kind of, I didn't have to be, well, yeah, I had to be kind of extracted or whatever. If I'd have been a little smarter about it, I probably could have finished, but that's neither here nor there. And then went back out a couple weeks, maybe like 5 weeks later, got that, and finished up the challenge. I think like just in time, like the end of April or something. And I had done the Foothills Trail in May the previous year. But anyway, so I've done a couple more little, like I've done, most of my FKTs have been unsupported because, again, I'm not super fast, but I'm pretty steady. And, I don't mind doing things unsupported. And unsupported is with, like, basically you carry everything with you. And the only thing you can do is filter water. That's the only kind of quote unquote aid you can get. And so, yeah, then, and Aaron, you can help me with this. I know Kevin Ball, he did the Gritchell route.
In 2020.
2020, yes. So I heard about this route called Gritchell, which is runs from the Profile Trailhead, which kind of leads up towards Grandfather Mountain to Mount Mitchell. And it's approximately 100 miles. And I think he did a little extra to get like he wanted his watch to say 100 miles. Now, I didn't really care about that as much, but the route just seemed really cool. And I'd already done from like Mount Pisgah to Mount Mitchell. And this is kind of coming from the other direction into Mount Mitchell. And somebody actually joked on me the other day that how much I love the Mountains to Sea Trail, but I really do love the Mountains to Sea Trail. I haven't been, maybe going more towards the east, I would say something different, but I haven't been on any section that I just didn't love. Like 180 miles in, maybe not so much, but on every day, I will drive 2+ hours to just go run on the Mountains to Sea Trail. So I had it in my mind that I wanted to do this 100-mile route. Well, in having done several 100-milers, I was like, well, I know I can do 100 miles, but I really, really want to do 200 miles. So, but they're just really expensive. I mean, what, $1,000+ for entry fee, and then you got to travel. And all the ones on the East Coast until recently are looped courses pretty much. And I don't want to do, like, I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel if I'm doing loops. So I didn't want to do that. So I was like, well, I know that from Grandfather Mountain to Mount Mitchell is 100 miles. And I'd heard of a route called the Archel that's from like Mount Mitchell to Art Loeb that's like 100 miles. So I was like, well, if I just put those two together, I mean, I got 200 miles right there. And I'm like, I'm sure I could get Abe because I have a lot of friends that, that are kind of in that area. And my husband, he's always usually up for helping me. So the wheels started turning this year. Yeah, so that's kind of how that came about, I just and I was in no, as far as I know, there's no female on record that's ever done that Gritchell route. So I was like, I can get an FKT or fastest known time for that, and then I'll just create this 200-mile route. It's and I'll have the FKT for that. Plus, I just wanted to see if I could do 200 miles without, having to put so much, like without having to travel and all that. Because and another thing is I've been having some autoimmune issues. I'll say probably since 2021. Nothing super major, but I just didn't know if my body could handle doing 200 miles. Like, I've been having a little bit more trouble recovering from the 100-mile distance. Because used to, I could go out and run 100 miles and like the next day doing my run streak. Because that's another thing. I've had a run streak since 2017, but I could go out, do my run streak mile, and like, I used to clean houses for a living. And I'd be walking up and down stairs and getting down, cleaning bathrooms, doing everything. And then I just can't do that anymore. As we'll talk about later, like it takes longer for the swelling to go down. I'm more susceptible to getting infections with the autoimmune issues that I have. So I have to be really careful about, not to get sick, basically. Because if I get a cold, then I'm like going to get something else. So anyway, those are all the reasons why I kind of decided on this route. Plus, it's mostly on the Mountains to Sea Trail, which I absolutely love. So I was like, well, this is the route I want to do.
What did you end up naming the 200-mile route?
I stuck with, so I think, did we play around with the name whenever you and I were together?
You and I were, we were shooting names around, but
yeah,
you were calling it GML for a while there.
I had to stick with that because, Russ, my husband, he made black and he put GML 200 on there. So I had to stick with the name because, can't change it now. It's literally burned in wood. So it is now called the Grand Mountains to Lobe 200. And how I came up with that name is because I figure Grandfather Mountain, Mountains to Sea Trail to the Art Lobe. So instead of Mountains to Sea, it's the Mountains to Lobe. So that's what it is.
That's great. That's great. I love it. So, and just a course overview, you said it started at the profile trail for Grandfather Mountain, right?
Yep.
Yep. And then basically you connect your way over to the Mountains to Sea Trail, and then Mountains to Sea Trail. You summited Mount Mitchell?
Yes.
Okay. And then you continued on the Mountains to Sea over to Pisgah, and then summited Pisgah and down, and then over to Art Lobe, and then Art Lobe to its terminus at Davidson River.
Right. And to make things even more fun, somebody attempts this route, they also have to summit Table Rock Summit. Go to Table Rock Summit, because why not?
When you started, you went the wrong way at one point, right?
Yep. So apparently they've cut this connector on the profile trail that so normally you'd go, and I should have known this because I've done this trail a ton of times. I don't know what I was thinking, but you go down and it kind of meanders down by the creek and you pass like the old trailhead, and I think there's still a shelter down there, but you pass that, but then they've cut this connector that kind of bypasses that. Well, I accidentally took this connector because the sign, it just didn't make sense to me. So there was a sign and it said something about lower profile trail. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, that was the right way to go. But anyway, I got up to where the lower profile trail connected to the connector. And I was like, I know for sure I went the wrong way. So I like ran, and the bad thing was I drew it wrong on my map. So I had the route in my watch, so it would alert me if I was going the wrong way. It didn't alert me because I drew it wrong. Well, so I had to go back down and then take the right route up to, back up. So I did like an extra mile within the first 2 miles. But that was okay. I was in a good mood. The weather was like, oh my God, it was amazing on Friday. It was actually kind of warm. I mean, because I wore arm sleeves and Russ was like, you're going to get really hot. Because I do run hot. My hands stay cold, but I run hot. So like instantly the arm sleeves came down. But got up there and he ran like the first up to Shanty Spring, which is what the first 3 miles or so. And then he ended up coming back down. And I told him he didn't have to go back and redo it. He could just keep running. He's like, well, you'll probably catch up to me anyway. So I, get up there, and that's one of the prettiest sections. And it's a really cool section, like just within the first 15 miles, but getting up to Callaway Peak. So you take the profile trail, you get on the grandfather trail, and then you'll have some ladders and stuff that you have to go up, and then you get up to Callaway Peak, and it's just beautiful up there. And then from Callaway, you go down the Daniel Boone Scout Trail. That's a nice kind of really runnable section typically, unless you've had a lot of rain, then it's like running through a creek bed. And then that takes you over to the Cragway Trail. And then you have, what is it? It's called the Top Crag View, I believe. And again, just amazing. It's really pretty over there. And then you take the Nawadi Trail, and then that drops you down to the Tanawa Trail, which is it's the Mountains of Sea Trail, but that section is called the Tanawa Trail. And it's fairly runnable. I mean, you have some up and down until you get to the Rough Ridge area. And again, Rough Ridge, especially if you go in the summertime, you can't go off trail. They have tons of signs out there, and I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're like really on the boardwalk, there's blueberries everywhere. I mean, you can share with the bears, and you have like a nice little afternoon snack. And I love to go in the summertime. And I think they're blueberries. Somebody told me they might be, was it huckleberries? But either way, they're good. And you get some really, really good views over there. I think you can, have you been over there, Aaron?
I did the first, I think 25 or 26 miles with Kevin on Gritchell.
And can't you see Grandfather Mountain from Rough Ridge? Is that Grandfather Mountain that you're looking at?
I believe so. Yep.
Yeah, but it's really, really nice. And you can also see the Lynn Cove Viaduct, which is like this really structure that they put in. You can do the research on it, but it's really, really cool. So then you continue on, and this is all within the first 15 miles, but it's just like I could take pictures for days over there. I tried not to take too many, but you kind of go under the after Rough Ridge. It is pretty technical in that area, but you go under the Lynn Cove Viaduct, and then you end up at Beacon Heights. And if you just do Beacon Heights, that from that parking area, and you go up to the overlook, if you go in the summertime, again, there's like tons of like blueberries or whatever they're, huckleberry, I don't know what they are, but they're delicious. I did the what's called the Tanawa Marathon one year, where you just run the whole thing out and back, and it's about 26 miles, and got to Beacon Heights and just had a feast off of the berries. And by the way, food also dictates a lot of my running. Food guides me to a lot. But that's where I met Russ for the first time. And I did have to deviate a little bit just to go down to the parking lot and then come back. So I met him there. That was roughly 15 miles in. And then continue on. It's a little bit technical when you first get back on. And there the Tanawa Trail ends, and you're just on the Mountains of Sea Trail. And then you hit this nice, like a gravel road for a little bit. I would say at least a few miles, actually. So that section is really, really runnable. But then you get into Wilson Creek. And on paper, it doesn't look that hard, but you're kind of meandering. It's like up and down along the creek. And there's like, I don't know how many water crossings, but I swear it's a lot. I should have counted, but and so I got down, and I love Wilson Creek too. All of my favorite swimming holes are down there. You got Harper's Creek Falls. Huntfish Falls is my absolute favorite. But I got to this one creek crossing, and I don't know why I didn't use my poles, and I was going way too slow, and somehow I just lost my footing and completely fell in the water. Like, and it was pretty deep. Even though we hadn't had much rain, that particular creek crossing is fairly deep. So I'm like, well, I'm definitely going to have to change clothes. So I got down to Huntfish Falls, and then, and Grag Prong is down there. That's a really good swimming hole. So I'd passed that, but I just had to go put my hand in the water at Huntfish Falls. I don't know why. So I get down the rock, and then like it's like in slow motion, I just start sliding into the water. And I'm usually down there barefooted because I'm down there swimming with my family. Well, I had on my trail shoes, and thank goodness I had taken my pack off, because I actually, truth be told, I was debating jumping in the water. Just because every time I get there, if I'm on a run, I have to jump in the water. Well, anyway, I slid, and I'm fully submerged up to the neck in the water. And it's really hard to get out of that particular swimming hole. Like, especially if you have shoes on, because you just can't grip. Like, usually I can grip with my toes. So I finally get out. I was like maybe a mile and a half from Russ, where I was going to meet him again. And I had signal. I called him. I said, look, I got to change clothes when I get to you, because I am soaked. And I'm about to give TMI, but I also have incontinence issues. So I have to wear like stuff for that. And that was the biggest issue. It was like I was wearing a diaper. So I said, I gotta change all this, because I'll get so chafed. So I got to him, changed, and we had talked about not having like really any hot food until I think 50K, and I was only 24 miles in, but somehow instinctively he knew, and he had made me some soup, and it was just amazing. And Russ was awesome, because sometimes I complain about him, but he was great this time. And so I met him, got a change of clothes, got some food, and went continued on. And I got maybe like a half a mile, and the Mountains to Sea guys, the trail work guys, had been down there recently, and they loved their diversion ditches. And I appreciate all the work they did, but I stepped wrong in this diversion ditch, and it was really soft, and turned my left ankle. And I'd been having some issues with this left ankle. So that was my biggest concern going into this, was like, was my ankle going to hold up? And I think you and I talked about, different things. Like, you had suggested I tape it, which I didn't. But, and it hurt like the dickens. I had to stop for a minute and, just take a moment. Cause the more I've lost a lot of mobility in it, from turning it so much these last few months, which I don't think I've told you that. Sorry. But anyway, so the whole rest of the day, like, I was babying that ankle. I was trying to take it easy. And Wilson Creek is not a place where, like, especially with all the leaves, like the leaves were horrible, with it being November. I mean, all the leaves are down. And so I just had to really, really be careful. And I couldn't even run as much as I normally would. And then with all the creek crossings, I was just being very, very mindful of every step that I was taking. So, and then on this section, so the next section, or the next aid stop, was around 30, it was 30 something. I don't remember the exact mileage. And that's where I was going to meet my first pacer. And, again, I'd messed up the mileage because I drew the map a little bit wrong, or I don't know what was going on, but it was like 2 miles longer than what I anticipated. So, and I didn't have a signal. Because I kept trying to call Russ and let him know that, it was just taking me longer than I thought, and finally I was like maybe 5 miles out, and I was able to call him and let him know. And he said, he told me that my pacer was actually running towards me, and well, I should probably see her any second because she'd been running for about 30 minutes. She'd been gone for about 30 minutes. And so I finally got to her, and I was on trail, but it was weird because my watch kept telling me I was going the wrong way, but I saw the white dots. You just follow the white dot on the Mountains to Sea Trail, you're going the right way. So she finally caught up to me, and by this time it was dark, and luckily I'd grabbed a headlamp from Russ just in case, because you never know. And because I was supposed to meet her at 4:20 in the afternoon, and it was past 4:20. And so we got up there and got some aid, and then continued on. And I think that was like Highway 181. And then that next section, you run down the road for a mile or two on to I think it's Green. Is it Greentown Road, or they call it the Greentown Trail, but it's actually a dirt road, and I don't remember the name of the Forest Service road. But then that takes you to the Steels Creek, what's called the Steels Creek Trail, but it's still the Mountains to Sea Trail. And that section is part of the Table Rock 50K. And it's pretty technical too. You have some runnable stuff, but it's pretty technical because, again, you're running along Steels Creek, and anytime you're running along a creek, it seems like it's just really rocky and technical. And that's also where, in my opinion, the first like big climb is, coming out of Steels Creek and going up to Table Rock. And that's the climb that broke me when I did the 50K, and when I was on the side of the trail, puking. But we just took that climb really easy. Though all those miles were super enjoyable. I actually saw a black salamander, I don't remember what's a slimy spotted salamander. I think that's what it's called. Well, those, just so you know, if you ever see a black salamander with white spots, if you see those on the trail, probably don't pick it up, because they're not slimy. They're actually really sticky. And when you pick it up, it like, this sticky stuff comes out of its tail. It's like a defense mechanism for other animals, and the animals will try to eat it, and it gets all sticky, and like leaves and stuff stick in their mouth, and then the salamander gets away. Well, my hands were so sticky because every time I see something, I have to pick it up. I don't know why. But I used hand sanitizer, baby wipes. I finally ended up washing my hands in the river like 15 miles later, and then the stuff came off of them. But it was just really sticky. So anyway, we got up to Table Rock, and we got up to the summit, and Elizabeth, she's like, that was my pacer. She's like, cut your headlamp off. Well, we were hoping we could see some stars, but you couldn't see anything up there. It was just, it was kind of foggy or cloudy. So we're like, all right, well, went up to Table Rock, because the plan was to get up there before, while it was still daylight. Well, that didn't happen. So we got down to the Table Rock parking lot, and that's where we met Russ again. And it was supposed to be, I think, like mile 46 or 47. Well, by my watch, I had almost 50 already. So I was like a quarter of the way finished in my mind. I'm like, woohoo. Then the next section is a very, very popular section for hikers. Went through the chimneys, and in the daylight, I mean, I was telling Elizabeth's done it because she's done that whole entire section of the Mountains to Sea Trail. She's like section hiking the Mountains to Sea Trail, and she'd literally just done this section like in October. But I mean, 360 views when you get up there in the chimneys. It's just really beautiful. And then after that, it's like you're constantly going up and down, up and down, up and down, going through the chimneys, and then you get down to Short Off. And then a little bit past Short Off, you drop down to the Linville River. And that descent, I think so. Elizabeth, she had told me before that she's a really, really good climber. I mean, she was just killing me on the climbs, but On the descents, I'm a little bit faster. Or I shouldn't say faster, but I'm just a little bit less apprehensive. So she's like, just go ahead. And so I went ahead and went down to the river because I knew that she would catch me. I was like, I'm gonna be really slow crossing this river just because I'm paranoid. And sure enough, I'm almost across the river, and then I see her headlamp coming behind me. And then she caught up to me on the climb. And the next climb is like a doozy. It gets me every time. So it's what they call pinnacle. And I think you gain, I might say this wrong, but I think in like, it's almost 1,000 feet per mile, especially once you get up a little bit, like it's where the MST meets the Lead Mine Trail, the Linville Gorge Trail. I mean, you're just like straight up, and they have cut switchbacks, but you're still pretty much going straight up. But if you get up to the top of Pinnacle in the daylight, again, that you're like 360 views on the other side of the Linville Gorge, and it's just amazing. So we got up there, and then we had like maybe a mile or two to run down Old Highway 105 to get to the next cruise stop. And that's where Russ's crew duties were ending. And then Charles Raffensberger was going to pick me up. And they had, and then Kevin Sylvie and Paul Tilley were there too, because Paul was going to pick me up as a pacer. And they had their like not disco music, but like techno music going, and the lights going on the truck. And I was like, oh yeah, this is great. So that kind of pumped me up for the next section. And then, but again, still like I think I was like 60 miles in at this point. So I'm still not fresh, but freshish if you consider I'm doing 200 miles. So get some food and everything. And Paul and I take off down on that section is called the Over Mountain Victory Trail. Even though it's all still the MST, these little sections have different names. And we take that, and it's pretty runnable. Like although the leaves, it makes it a little bit slower than usual, but it's pretty runnable. And but we get out on the Dobson Knob Road. It's like Old Highway 106. That's where the trail, it dumps you out. You take a left. I started getting really sleepy. I don't know. I hate doing gravel roads, I will say. And it's just enough of a grade where it was like you want to run, but I didn't feel like running it, if that makes sense. So I get up a little bit of the road, and I'm like, I think I need to take a dirt nap. And we talked about the dirt naps. So I laid down for a second, take a little dirt nap. I don't even know how long it was. It was probably like maybe 10 minutes or whatever. I just needed to close my eyes for a minute. Plus the next section, even though it's mostly downhill, it is so technical. It's like you're running on a ridge on the outside of the Linville Gorge. And the Linville Gorge is just super, super technical. So, and we get out on the, I don't know if that's Dobson Knob or Bald Knob that we were on. I forgot to look at the map before we talked, but I kept losing the trail, and luckily Paul was in front of me, and because you couldn't really see between the leaves and it needs maintenance, that little section right there. And it's just really, really rocky. And he had some intuition where he could just find the line, because that's basically what he was doing, just finding the line. And then we get down, and you start dropping down, but it's a switchback section that's really, really technical and needs maintenance. So that was kind of slow, but it was funny because he was saying, oh, I bet this is going to be a beautiful view. Like, we're really close to sunrise. I was like, all right, Paul, that's my goal. I'm not going to allow you to see that view. Because it was just taking a really long time. And I'm like, I'm going to make sure I am off of this ridge before you get to see that view. And we just missed it. So, and then that takes you down. Once you get down that really technical section, you pass like a primitive camping site, and there's like a good water source if you ever come up that trail from Highway 221. But, and then you drop down onto, I think it's Dobson Knob Road, and it's a gravel road. And then that you take that for like maybe a mile or two, and then you'll get back on single track and you'll cross over the Catawba River on this really cool bridge, and then or you cross the railroad tracks, then the bridge, and then you hit a really runnable section, some more fire roads, nice switchback single track, and that takes you down to 221. And that's where Charles was meeting us the next time. And by then it was daylight. It was pretty early in the morning. And then from there you cross over. He met us where the USFS station is. And then that next section is the Woods Mountain Trail. It's still the MST, but that section is Woods Mountain. And it's my favorite. We have property out there, and it's like 15 minutes from our property. And I love that section. But I like the first couple miles, you're on the fire road, and it's like just like a gradual grade. Normally I can run all that. And I told Paul, I said, normally I'm running all of this, but I couldn't run it. Like, we were fast walking, and we would jog a little bit, and then once you get off that, you kind of drop down and you cross like your last water crossing, which, to backtrack, I did change shoes at mile 60 because I pretty much had crossed I knew I wasn't going to hit much water after that. And I'm glad I did, because I had on some zero drop shoes that I think were bothering my calves and Achilles, and I put on some Hokas. But anyway, so you cross the creek, and then after that, you get on some more service road. But then once you get off that and get on the single track, I mean, it is straight up. I think it's like between 20 and 30% grade for a while, and you'll have like a little blip of runnable for like maybe 20 steps, and then you're just going straight up. And there's stairs, and I've done a lot of maintenance with the Mountains to Sea group on that section. But it's just really steep. And that whole section is probably like 11, 12 miles. And I swear it feels like, well, most of it's, you're either going up or you're going down. There's no like hardly any flat. And that section too, not only was the climbing just annihilating me, but I was getting really sleepy. And when I get tired, I have my left eye is lazy, and I started seeing double. And I was like, Paul, I have got to take a for real nap when we get down to the next stop. Cause after that section, we were meeting, we were going to meet Charles again. And, so that section seemed like it took forever, just because of all the climbing and because I couldn't see straight. And we finally got down to, it's Highway 80. What is that overlook called? Shoot, now I can't remember. Buck Creek. No, that's not Buck Creek Gap. Do you know, Aaron?
I'm having a hard time thinking of it myself. No.
Oh, shoot.
It's okay.
I had my blog pulled up too. And but it's Highway 80, or Highway 80 meets the Blue Ridge Parkway. And that's a major road crossing. It's a really pretty overlook too. So we finally got there, and then I did take, I don't know how long of a nap I took there, because they didn't really like time me or anything. And but we kind of got re-energized, ate some good food. And I will say, normally I have issues with nutrition on all these runs, but I didn't have any issues this run. And I think one of the reasons, because I had chosen all of my food. So it's all food that I knew would agree with me. And I did a lot of soups. I did a lot of chicken or rice with chicken and avocado. And it was real easy to put together. I think it was basically instant rice, canned chicken, and just throw some avocado in there. And another thing is, because I was getting such good food at all the aid stops, I wasn't having to eat as many gels. So I came back with like 1,000,000 gels. It's insane. I was like, I can't believe I have this many gels left over. But I truly was not hungry. Um, you know, I just wasn't hungry in between. I mean, I was eating in between, but I wasn't eating a gel like every 30 minutes like I planned. Um, so another thing at this stop, so the next stop was Black Mountain Campground. And then, so we were thinking ahead to the summit of Mount Mitchell, and we debated on whether or not to meet at Black Mountain Campground or Mitchell. We decided that we may not make the summit of Mount Mitchell before the gate closed, because we thought that the gate closed at 8. And so we decided to meet at the Black Mountain Campground. And the next section, you have it's up and down, but there's a lot of runnable in there. So we actually made decent time getting into the campground. I think it was it was like between 4 and 5, maybe, or maybe like 5 o'clock. But even still, with 90 miles on my legs, we weren't sure how that climb, because up to Mount Mitchell, that's 100 miles. And, with 90 something miles on my legs, we just didn't know how long that climb would take. So we went ahead and just told, Kevin was the crew person at that point. We told him to meet us at the gate, and we would just summit Mount Mitchell and then run down to the gate. So we'd have to run a little bit farther to get aid. And actually we'd have to deviate. What Paul told me from his Gaia app was a third of a mile, but it was actually a half of a mile. So, but we go up to Mount Mitchell, and I was like, well, I want to take a picture at the summit, like, on the little, what do you call it? Like the observation deck. Even though there's nothing to observe at this point, because it's like, I think it was just after 8. It wasn't too late. And we take our picture and everything, or he took my picture, and I'm sitting there. We sat down for a second, and I was like, dang, I just got the Gritchell FKT. I started crying for a second. And then it was really cold up there, though, because it had started raining. And, so that moment passed very quickly. I was like, all right, we gotta get down, because like I'm freezing. Both of us were freezing. And then from there you get on the Old Mitchell Trail, which is like super technical. On fresh legs in the daytime, no leaves, it's somewhat runnable, but it's, in my opinion, it's not really runnable. I don't know what you think. It's just like these massive boulders, and like even on the climb up, some of that actually is runnable. On the climb up to Mitchell, we did run a little bit, and I thought we made really good time. But man, coming down until you get to the commissary trail, it's just like rocky as crap. So we finally get down the commissary trail, and I don't know what I was thinking. Like I was thinking we were going to get on the Buncombe Horse Trail instantly. So I'm like, where's this Buncombe Horse Trail? And Paul, he loves Mount Mitchell. Like he's done, what do you got? The Quest for the Crest, I think like 5 times. The Black Mountain Ultra Traverse up there, like probably like 4 or 5 times. He's just always going up to Mitchell. So he knows that area really well. And he's like, no, we just got to go down a little bit and we'll be there. And then, we get on the Buncombe Horse Trail, and that's pretty runnable. Most of that is runnable, but I was doing like, run for a little bit and then walk for a minute, and then run for a little bit and then walk for a minute, just because I was getting tired at that point. And I was trying to move as fast as possible, because we were very cold. And that ridge, it just gets really cold. So we finally get out onto the road. And I don't know what the name of that road is. It's just the road that takes you up to Mount Mitchell. But I think the gate's down at the Parkway, right? Yeah. So we ran down to the Parkway, and there we both decided we were going to change our clothes, and we had to put on, because I still had on a short sleeve shirt and shorts, but I had put my rain jacket on. And so I put on a long sleeve shirt and capris, and then just put my rain jacket back on. And luckily, so I bought these possum fur gloves, and those things are awesome. And my friend loaned me these waterproof rain mitts, and they're mostly waterproof, but they did get a little bit wet. I could feel some moisture, but those things were amazing. I actually kept hers because I messed them up, and then bought her some new ones. So they're coming in the mail. But I never did put on a hat. I just had on my little headband the whole time, and that was just mostly to protect my head from my headlamp, so my head wouldn't hurt. But we got down there and changed clothes, and then I asked Kevin, I was like, so can you like drive us back up to the trailhead? So the gate never did close though. I forgot to tell you that the gate, it was open, but he drove to the gate before 8, fell asleep for like 6 hours, and didn't realize that the gate never closed. And I was a little bit irritated in the moment, but then I was like, whatever, I already did a little bit of extra, I may as well just do 1 extra mile. But he wouldn't, and in hindsight, he wouldn't drive us up to the trailhead because he had all that stuff laid out of his truck, and he would have had to pack all that, so it would have just wasted a bunch of time. So we ran back up the road and then got on the next section, and I don't know what that section's called, but I call it the Walker's Knob section, because you end up at the Walker's Knob overlook when you get done with that section. I swear it seemed like it was about 10 miles, but I think it was more like 5. But it's so technical. And then and then I kept telling Paul, oh, I think this is where the descent is, like the final descent. And then every time I would say that, we would start climbing again. And I'm like, what? Like that section was not fun at all. And it was like really cold. It was getting really foggy. I think it became daylight at some point during that no, it felt like it was daylight. I forgot. I light up the forest with all the lighting that I have. No, it was still dark, but anyway, that section took forever. So if you ever do it, it's really, really nice if you have fresh legs. I would just start at the Walker's Knob overlook and do that section, and that be the only thing you do. And then we finally got out to the parking lot, but it was so foggy, we literally couldn't see anything, like nothing. I'm like, I could see there was a side trail, and I knew for sure that wasn't the way to go because I've been there before. But I was like, I don't know where the trail is. We ended up finding it. It was across the parking lot, and I think you had to cross the street or whatever. And then that little section actually wasn't so bad, but I was starting to get tired again. And I'll be honest, it was mostly a blur, and it was so foggy, like you could hardly see the trail. I was just, I just couldn't, I had my head down, and I was just trying to follow the line, and just stay awake or whatever. And then I don't remember how long that section was, but I remember at some point, Paul, he's like, I think we have like 8 more miles to the next aid stop. It was I kept calling it Potato Head Knob, and now I can't even remember what it's called. I think it's Potato Field, because he called it Potato Chip. But it was the Potato Field Gap. That's what it's called. And he's like, I think it's 8 miles to Potato Field. So he's like, why don't we call Kevin and see if he can meet us? The next one was Graybeard Overlook, and we were about a mile away from there. Well, he didn't answer the phone because he was asleep at Potato Field. Well, Laura and Mark were going to meet us at Craven Gap, and I ended up calling her, and I told her, I was like, hey, can you come meet us here? I didn't even think about the fact that she didn't have any of our stuff, whatever. All I was thinking was, and I was fine, just keeping on going, because I thought like it's probably like 5 miles to Potato Field, and I was like, what? I have enough nutrition, I have enough water. But anyway, Laura and Mark ended up coming and meeting us at Graybeard, and we had to wait about 15 minutes. And then sure enough, while they were on their way, Kevin ended up waking up, and he saw the missed calls, and then he ended up coming too. So I took a nap in Mark and Laura's car, and then got some nutrition, and then we continued on, and then Mark and Laura were like, well, we'll just meet you at Craven. And then we decided we were still going to meet Kevin at Potato Field. And I'm glad we did, because from Potato Field to Craven ended up being longer than what it was supposed to be. Because by the time we were at Graveyard, I think I was, or Graybeard, I was at 116 miles, and it wasn't supposed to be that much. So we got to Potato Field, and there I really, really, really wanted a sausage link, like a smoked sausage link, and he had made soup. So, or we had made the rice and stuff. I literally just threw the sausage link in there and just ate it. I was so hungry. So, ate there, and we were as fast as we possibly could through that stop, since we had just stopped like 5 miles earlier. And then Paul, so it ended up being 5 miles, by the way. Paul said 8, I said 5, and I was right. And he's like, oh, well, I guess, and he was using Gaia. He kept saying, no, I have it on my Gaia. And I'm like, well, I have it on my Koros. This is the, so I think we were both starting to get a little grumpy at that point too. And then the next section is Craggy Gardens. And now it was really foggy, but we got some good cloudy views, if that even makes sense. Like, you just see clouds through the rocks and everything. But on a pretty day, like, the views from Craggy Gardens are absolutely gorgeous. I hate that it was so foggy, because I really wanted him to see that. He hadn't seen that section before. But then after Craggy, what is the next, that next really just up and down section? Is it Lane? Yeah. Pinnacle. Yes, Lane Pinnacle. Oh my God. I was like, you think every time you think you're to the last climb, well, you're not, because you can see ahead that there's like a mountain ahead, and you know that you got to go up that. So I just tried to settle in. We literally just settled in and just hiked as hard as we could. And then, but because I knew that after that, there was going to be a really nice descent around Rattlesnake Lodge, and a really like flowy section going down to Craven. So I just had that in the back of my mind. All right. So we got past Lane Pinnacle and all that, and Rattlesnake Lodge. And let me tell you, we had not seen a soul for however many days. This was Saturday, right? No, we had seen nobody. We get to Rattlesnake, and Paul, he's like, we hadn't seen it. He got kind of mad. He's like, we hadn't seen anybody. It was just like bam, bam, bam. We kept seeing people. I guess he didn't want to see anybody. And again, I think I don't know if he was getting cranky, but and my only problem was I was starting to get really sleepy again, and I was starting to see double, and all these people were coming at me, and I had my poles. So I would try to hug the side of the mountain as hard as I, on the right, as much as I could, because I didn't want to stab anybody with my poles. And I'd put my poles in my right hand every time I passed somebody, because I couldn't tell exactly how far away they were from me, because I was seeing double. So like one time I fell or I tripped, and I literally just threw myself into the side of the hill. I'm like, well, it's soft and it's got leaves. At least I know I'm not going to hurt myself. But, and so in that section, what is it? The Bull Mountain down to Craven. It's very flowy, but I swear it seemed like it took forever. It seemed like it was a lot longer than what it should be. And even Lauren, do what?
Was that Ox Creek?
Yeah, because there's a place where you can park and then hike up. And then we saw a lot of people there too. But it just seemed to go on forever. And for some reason, like, the mileage was off right there too. Because by the time I got down to Mark and Laura, it was supposed to be mile 122, and I was at like 130 almost. So I was like, well, I'm ready to get some real food again. So we got down to Mark and Laura, and that's where Paul and Kevin, that's where their duties were going to be over. And I started just going Mark and Laura's car, and I was going to take a nap and everything. And then I was like, well, I should probably at least say bye to Paul and Kevin before I sleep. Because what are they going to do? Just sit here and wait for me to finish sleeping and then say bye? So, told them thank you and told them goodbye, and I appreciated everything they did. And then took a nap. And Mark had brought me sausage patties and eggs, which was really good. But I have something to say about that in a minute. And then got all my nutrition and everything. And Mark was going to pace me for the next 20 miles. And that next section is extremely, there's so much runnable stuff in the 20 miles that he had. And we knew that. So we had decided that Mark was going to take me to Shut In, and then Laura was going to hike with me up Shut In because she loves to climb. And he kept saying something about doing 8.5 minute miles. And I was like, Mark, I ain't doing no 8.5 minute miles. You'll be lucky if you get 11 minute miles out of me right now. So, we take off. Well, here we had a problem. Before I started running, I realized that my watch, the watch that was tracking the 200 miler, had stopped tracking to save battery. And I was like, oh my God. So we decided to put it on the charger and then just put it in my pack. And we just leave it alone. Well, also the Garmin InReach I had, it had done kind of the same thing on the second day. So it missed, that is Buck Creek Gap. It missed a little section before Buck Creek Gap. And then we figured it out, and we put it on the charger, and then we actually kept that on the charger for quite a while. Luckily, my portable charger, the battery on that lasts forever, because I don't think I ever charged that again, unless my crew did and I didn't realize it. And it stayed charged the whole time. And it charged all my devices. I even had to put my regular Coros that was tracking the 100 on the charger for a little bit before we ran into the campground. And I just held it in my hand for a while so that it could get a little bit of juice to go up to Mitchell. But anyway, so we get out on that. It's like an 8-mile section that I ran with Mark to the next aid stop, to Highway 74A. And it, somewhere along there, he kept checking it. And I'm thinking that maybe one time when he took it out or put it back in, somehow it stopped the activity. So I'm missing 4 miles of that. So I was just like, ugh. And there's really nothing you can do in the moment. And then also during that section, I started feeling really nauseated and burping up. I knew exactly it was that sausage that he gave me. And I felt so bad. I was like, Mark, I really think I got to throw up because I got to get the sausage out. So we get to 74A, and that was the first thing I did. And I felt so bad because he had went to the store and bought that for me, but it just was not agreeing with me. I think maybe that the spices in it or something. I don't know. But as soon as I did that, I felt great. Only problem was I couldn't eat a lot because I just didn't feel like eating. So I was like, I'll just eat what I can. I'll make sure I take in a lot of gels on this next section and eat really good the next time we stop. And then that next section is insanely runnable. You go through this one section along the parkway before, it's between 74 and 26, and it's flat, but this guy that maintains it, he puts in bridges or steps. Is that they call it the stairway to heaven. I don't know. Have you run that? Oh, okay. And I was like, why are there so many steps? It's not even uphill or downhill. And I ran a good bit of that. But then again, it's the really runnable sections, for some reason, they just seem to go on forever. It's I didn't want to run for long periods of time anymore. I wanted to climb. And so, but we finally got out of that, and you cross the parkway, and then you do another little section on the other side of the bridge. And then Laura ended up meeting us again it was before 191 where the Arboretum is, where the start of the shut-in. I can't remember exactly where she met us. But that's where she was going to start running and Mark was going to crew us. And at that point, like I was having a slightly hard time, and we had planned to only meet once along the shut-in at Beaver, what's it called? Beaver Dam Gap. But Laura, she's like, Mark decided he was just going to kind of follow us up the parkway and then just be at every overlook just in case, which worked out really well because I ended up having to close my eyes again. But we got on the shut-in, and I was moving really well. I was able to run some, and hold on, I hear my grandson. Sorry. But I might have to go into another room. I don't know if we can pause or something. So we're on the shut-in at this point, and I thought we were moving really well. I think even you said we did that section pretty like quicker than what you thought we would. Laura's, she is like really, really good company. I will say that she is. I mean, Mark's good company too, but Laura, I enjoy run hiking with her, and she kind of knows, like she would pick it up a little bit on like the more runnable sections, and then she's just very steady on the climbs. But I was amazed. I did kind of get her at the end on the descents. So I was still moving pretty good on the descents. Even at, they have that one final like drop. But one thing I did notice, that's when on that section is when the steps started really getting to me. Like when we had steps, and there's more towards the end of the shut-in. And I'm like, oof. Yeah. And I think, so anyway, we got down to the park. We finally got to the parking lot at the Mount Pisgah parking. And that's where you were going to pick me up. Well, I didn't know that because the plan was for Laura to take me up to Mount Pisgah. But then I think she decided she didn't want to do that. I mean, in both of Mark's and Laura's defense, they just ran 100 miles the week before. And I thought they were Looney Tunes for doing this in the first place.
I agree.
Yeah, especially after Mark told me how much trouble he had in at Rim to River. I was like, wow, you gonna be all right. But we were moving pretty slow, so that's good. So then yeah, you picked me up. I didn't get a whole lot to eat the first time we hit the Mount Pisgah parking area. I decided I would just get some more, because the plan was pretty much just to blow through that, go up to Mount Pisgah and come down anyway. That was my original plan. So you and I, we headed up to Mount Pisgah, and I still felt pretty good going up there and coming back down. We got up there, you took the obligatory photo. The original plan was to get up there during the day, and because I still have not seen the view up there. I'm assuming it's got to be pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most beautiful views. That's 360 panoramic. It's gorgeous, but yeah, it's still dark.
Day. So yeah, but it was supposed to be in the day on Saturday, and then we hit it like going into Sunday almost.
Yeah, it was like about 12 hours later than when we were anticipating.
Thank you for the reminder. So we get back down to Mount Pisgah, and Teresa had some, I don't know what she had waiting for me, but I remember it. I ate it all. Like, it was really good. And I was eating some barbecue potato chips. I ate a lot of barbecue potato chips during the run. And then we have to go down to the Pisgah Inn, and that, I think it was pretty runnable. That section's pretty runnable down there, and the view was really, really, and we actually did hit that like right at sunrise, and we got a pretty good view. You get an excellent view of Looking Glass Rock. And I was really looking forward to this downhill section going down from Pisgah Inn. It's like switchbacks, but I had run it in August and it was awesome. Like this nice downhill switchback section. And I don't know what happened between August and November, but it was a whole different trail. It was like leaf ridden, blowdowns. I remember you pulling, I swear it felt like a whole freaking tree that you pulled off the trail. I'm like, no, you don't have to move that. I'm like, at this point, I'm not even going to feel it if something hits me. But you did. And then, and it was, how long was that section we did? Like, it was like 10 miles or something.
Yeah, it was 10 miles to Teresa from Pisgah to 276.
And we did more of we didn't run much. We had to, well, you probably could have run, but I had to do more of like a quick walk shuffle, just because the leaves were so thick. And that was a little, I think that broke my spirit a little bit because I had in my mind what this section was going to be like, and it wasn't anything like that. But we got to Teresa, and Teresa read my paper, and she actually made me eggs and smoked sausage. I was so happy. But she made so many eggs. I was trying to eat all these eggs. And finally, I'm like, Teresa, how many eggs is this? And she's like, 4. And I'm like, no wonder I can't eat all this. I was trying to eat 4 eggs at one time. That's a lot. So, but I ate as much as I could. And then she was like, well, I thought maybe somebody else might want it. So I think I asked you if you wanted any. And I think you ate the bacon. And then we continued on to, that's Graveyard Fields. We had not hit Graveyard Fields yet, right?
Not yet. Nope.
So then that next section was Graveyard Fields, and then we had to go up to Black Balsam, and Skinny Dip Falls, and that section. Well, I didn't realize we had 5,000 feet of climbing until you just said that before the podcast. But, whew, that section broke me, like mentally and physically. I had a full mental and physical meltdown on that section. And I felt so bad because like I was like, oh yeah, I've never really run with Aaron before. And you're my coach. So I was all pumped up. And then I fully broke down. I mean, especially once we got past Skinny Dip Falls, because I remember we went down to the waterfall and I was like, oh, I just want to put my hand in there. Because I'm kind of weird. I like to touch nature. So like I'll touch trees, I'll touch ferns, pine needles. And then I definitely like to touch water. I just like to put my hand in water whenever I get to it. And then I kind of splash some on my face. But then right after that, I'm like, I got to take a dirt nap. I'm tired. And I think, so as a side note, in hindsight, I think what would have done me better is instead of taking like 30-minute naps, I think if I'd have taken like a couple hour-long naps to get like a full REM cycle, I think that would have done me a lot better, and I probably wouldn't have gotten quite as tired as I did. So if I ever decide that I want to do another 200-miler, I will definitely take longer naps. I will not have people setting 30-minute timers for me. So anyway, you might be able to tell what happened on this section more than me. I just remember, it just seemed like we were climbing forever. And then every time we came to a step, like I was having a hard time breathing. It was like in my diaphragm. I was just like, like I was having such a hard time. And then I would have to stop and literally just take a second, and then I could go up the step, which was so time consuming. And I look back at the data, and the miles didn't take as long as I thought they did, but it was a long time. I think 1 mile was like an hour or something. It was insane. And then we got on that nice ridge, and then like I'm trying to enjoy the view and everything, but I like all I can think is that I want to quit. Like I was like, and I kept thinking like how much time it was taking, and that like I knew that Teresa had to work on Monday, even though she said she talked to her boss or something, and I kept thinking that you had to work, and this was supposed to be done at like Sunday afternoon. Like I was supposed to be like done. And like I just had that in the back of my mind. And I just felt like I was just thinking about all of the like how much I was inconveniencing you guys. And I was like, if it's taken this long and I have the art lobe left, like what the heck am I gonna do? Because I just kept thinking the art lobe is like so bad, which in hindsight, that wasn't even the worst section. So we get up to Black Balsam, and I guess you guys had been plotting behind my back that you weren't going to let me quit. And I will say, I did tell you the only way I was quitting was if I was dying, because I had quit at Grindstone in September. And that was another thing going in, like I had lost a little bit of confidence because I had DNF'd at Grindstone, and I never DNF'd a 100-miler before due to like being sick. So, which is another reason why I didn't want to get sick too. So we get there, and then I sat in the chair, and then I'm like, I just got to lay down. I literally just like laid flat in the road. And that's where that picture comes from. I think y'all threw my Massanutten blanket over top of me. But then I got hungry, and I was like, well, I guess I better get up because I can't eat laying down right here. And then I tried to call Russ, and I was like, Russ, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I don't know if y'all heard me call Russ, but I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And he's like, what do you mean? You're gonna finish? And I was like, no, I don't think I can go anymore. And I don't remember what I said, but he's like, no, I'm not coming to pick you up. Like, I will see you at the finish. And I was like, ugh, all right. Well, I guess I got to go, because in my mind, like, y'all couldn't take me to the finish. I don't know. But if he wasn't coming to get me, there's only one way to go. I had to go down the trail. So I had, I think, 18, 19 more miles. I knew you told me you have 7 miles to, however you say it. I say Gloucester. You say, how do you say it?
Little gap.
Yeah. I'm like, y'all are leaving out so many letters here, but I say Gloucester Gap. But anyway, so I was like, okay, 7 miles. And I knew that the first couple miles were normally runnable, like if you are running. So it's not like really bad. And I knew you had a drop down, and then you climb up to Pilot, and then you drop down, and then you're at the aid. So luckily I knew that section. So I was like, all right. And so when I was with you before, I remember I said a little prayer. Actually, it looked like I was probably talking to my imaginary friend, but I said a little prayer, and I don't remember exactly what I said to God, but I said a little prayer to God. And, God, my dad told me he answers you 3 ways, either yes, no, or wait. And he made me wait for a little while, but then somehow all of a sudden it came to me that if I just take if I just do short steps, but steady, I wouldn't have to keep stopping on the climbs. And I swear I did that on that section. I just took really short steps, really small movements with my poles, and I did not have to stop on the climbs unless it was like a big step or something. But as far as just climbing, I did not stop at all. And that's what got me through. Like, I did tell Teresa, like, she would be talking to me, and I say, Teresa, I can't talk to you while we're climbing, but you keep talking. So like, she would talk to me on the way up, and on the way down, I would like address everything she'd said to me on the climb and be able to have a conversation. And luckily on the art lobe, there are sections, especially when you get on a ridge and you're kind of, it's kind of flat. Now I will say the climb up to Pilot was hard, and it is hard, no matter if you have fresh legs or not. And then the descent with all those leaves, I was like, and I knew that the Looking Glass 100K was going to be the next week. And I was like, oh my God, if they are doing this section, this is horrible. I can't even imagine. And I heard it was bad. But we made it down, and then when we got down to Gap, you surprised me with chicken teriyaki from Chinese. I don't know if your wife bought that or you. I don't know who bought it, but whoever bought it, I was very appreciative. And I ate as much of that as I possibly could, because I knew that I had 12 miles, no aid. I had to just power through that next 12 miles. And you said, and you told me, you're like, I'll try to wake up to meet you at the finish. Which, You didn't. I was like, I don't know. That's a long day. It's okay if he doesn't make it. Cause I think like y'all both put in some time. But like, we just kept on moving, and, the art lobe, it's like up and then it's flat and then it's down and then it's a little bit flat and then it's up. It's like just constant up and down, up and down, up and down. And then it was funny because like in my mind, the descent is a lot longer than it is. Like that final descent, like every time I run it, it seems like the descent gets shorter and shorter, and it's just they're more and more climbing. And I'm like, how are we going up again? But just kept on going, because I would tell Teresa, yeah, I think this is the final. I think this is it. I think this is the final climb. And then like we kept pulling out the map, and she's like, no, yeah, we got at least one more climb. And then something else weird happened on that section, and I don't know what the heck. I think I know what caused it, but my tongue started to swell, and I was just like, because you go for a few minutes and you're not talking, and then all of a sudden I tried to talk to Teresa, and I was like, it's like I had cotton in my mouth, and I had burned my tongue on some soup like when I was with Kevin and Paul. And I think that maybe between that and then like I was doing a lot of scratch chews at that point, because they're very tasty. But the sugar, I think it was like irritating my tongue. And then like the roof of my mouth was swollen. Like basically my whole mouth was messed up. And I was like, I can hardly talk. Like, what if I'm having an allergic? Like, then you start freaking out. And I'm like, what if I'm having an allergic reaction? Like, there's nowhere, I just have to wait till I get done. But like I could die on the trail. But I figured if I was going into anaphylactic shock or something, it wouldn't be that slow. I don't know. So I just was like, I just got to keep moving as fast as I can. And that was a driver too at the end, just trying to hurry up and get done in case something's wrong. And I ended up taking, I think, one more little dirt nap, and that really helped because I knew we had like 7 more miles to go. And I wanted to have my energy. So she's like, all right. I think she gave me like 10 minutes, but that 10 minutes was glorious, and got up, continued moving. And it was right around, I don't know what that big rock is, but you come out and there's like a little campsite, primitive campsite, and there's a big rock. Do you know what that rock's called?
I don't know. It's the backside of John's Rock, but I know it's not John's Rock. But yeah, I don't know what that one is exactly called, but it's in that vicinity. Yep.
Yeah. So, but I knew that, and I knew from there, all right, we're doing good. We don't have much longer to go. So, so yeah, we just kept on, and Teresa was awesome. She's very encouraging. I can't say enough good things about Teresa. And I felt another thing that like a driving factor for me to finish was because she was supposed to pace me at Grindstone. And since I DNF, she didn't get to pace me. And then that's kind of one of the reasons I was happy she was the last pacer, because I'm like, all right, I just have to get to Teresa and allow her to pace me. And hopefully she doesn't regret that decision.
Not at all. She really enjoyed that. She absolutely enjoyed it.
Well, it was fun. Well, it was fun in a weird, torturous way. So, but I did tell her once we were getting close, I was like, once we get to the bridge, there's a bridge when you come off of the Art Loeb Trail. And I was like, I want to get in front, because she was in front of me. And I was like, I want to get in front when we get to the bridge, because I don't know. I wanted to try to run the whole thing. Well, I forgot how long that little gravel path is. And I'm running. And again, like my diaphragm, like I was having a slightly hard time breathing a little bit, especially like whenever I was moving more. And I don't know what was going on with that, but so I had to stop like midway. And then I'm like, I just got to take one little quick walk break. And then there's another bridge where you turn right onto the bridge and then you go left, and then you get to the actual trailhead. Well, Russ was right there. And I was like, is this the end? And he said, no. And I said, well, why are you here? Now keep in mind, I'm like 91 hours in. So, I've had a little bit of sleep, but I'm still kind of delirious. And so he just ignored me and kept going. And I did like Teresa was cheering for me, and I felt so bad. I was like, Teresa, I love you, but I can't focus on my running and you cheering at the same time or something like that. But then like Charles, he actually drove to the finish, which I was really surprised about. And he was cheering too, but I wasn't going to tell him to shut up. So, so yeah, like I ran sort of ran. I don't even know what my pace was. It was probably really slow. But in my mind, I was doing a run in motion and get to the finish. And it was just like this wave of emotion. But I was so depleted. I didn't have any tears, but I was like doing a crying face. And, oh man, I was so happy it was like happy to be done, but had like happy about the accomplishment. Like, I can't believe I just traveled 200 miles on my own 2 feet. And, oh man. And before we got there, I think like I stopped Teresa and I was like, I don't remember what I said, but like, I basically just wanted to thank her for being out there. And, I was just so overwhelmed with emotion. And then Russ, he's like, hold on, I'll be right back. He goes to the truck and he brings back this plaque, that him and my daughter had like burned. They did like this wood burning. I don't even know what he used. I still, cause he buys stuff and then doesn't tell me, and I don't know what he buys, but it had like my daughter etched a big bear into it. I have to send you the picture. Or do you have the picture? Yeah. So my daughter like etched a bear, and then he did like a girl running, and the GML 200 and some mountains and stuff. And he's still working on, dialing it in, but it was really nice. And I was just like, I totally lost it at that point. I was like, oh my God, this is I can't believe you did that. Cause sometimes like my daughter, we talked about it while I was running. Like my daughter shows zero interest in my running. And for her to actually participate in that, it meant a lot. And she's not very emotional either, so you can't really get a good read on her. And she wasn't there, and I'm kind of glad she wasn't there in hindsight, especially since I didn't finish till 2:30 in the morning, and I'd planned to finish at like 11:30 Sunday morning. Because when I first asked her was she going to be there, she's like, well, I don't know, it depends on what I got going on. So I'm glad she wasn't there. And thank God Russ had gotten us a hotel room, because I was so tired, and I'm so, like sitting in a car for 2+ hours after that would have been excruciating. But here's the sad thing. So I went to Waffle House because we were supposed to go get Mexican, which we still need to go get Mexican. But obviously no Mexican restaurants open at 2:30 in the morning. So I was like, okay, we'll go get Waffle House. And that's one thing Russ had said to me when I tried to quit. He's like, I'll meet you at the finish and we'll go to Waffle House. Well, I get to Waffle House, and because of my tongue, I couldn't even eat my food. I think I made a sandwich out of the eggs and bacon. And so I was able to eat most of that, even though it hurt, but I could not eat my hash browns because I'd put ketchup on it, and the acid in the ketchup just burned like wildfire. So we went to the room and got, I think we probably stayed there until, right before checkout time. I think we checked out like right when, I don't remember. It was kind of a blur. Russ just basically drug me out of bed. He had everything already packed. I didn't have to worry about it. I did take a shower when we got to the room because I'm sure I smelled really nice. But also I took a picture after I finished, and Rusty had told me that I looked like I'd been in a UFC fight, but oh my God, I looked so bad. I don't remember if I did this with you guys, but I had given myself a black eye. I'd hit my eye on my massage stick, and I had like a black eye, and then my eyes were all puffy because I had not taken my allergy medicine, and my sinuses were all swollen, and whoo, I looked bad.
And you lost your Wordle streak.
I lost my Wordle streak, but so I lost my Duolingo streak, but they let you get it back doing a bunch of lessons at once. Yes, I lost my Wordle streak. Well, I lost my Wordle streak yesterday because I didn't get the stupid word.
Oh.
Because I do it when I first get up, and then I just try to do it really fast. And I just Didn't guess. And the word that it was, I would have never guessed that word. It was a word I would never guess. So, and
I'm having
you
a
know
tough time today.
what?
I'm having a tough time today with today's Wordle. Starts with
What?
AE. Yeah, it starts with AE. I don't know.
Today's word doesn't, no, it doesn't.
And mine may be different, but mine starts with AE. And I'm having, yeah. So if you can think of stuff, you can text me.
And I got mine in 3 tries. Almost got it in 2, but it was, I had a different word, but
Well, I mean, it was amazing being a part of it. I mean, like I get to talk to guests about theirs and not be a part of it, but it was more amazing being a part of this. And like you said, you were having a really hard time when I was with you. And I mean, I'm glad to be there for that, and there was no nothing on my side that I was, worried about the next day. I did get up at 2:30 when I thought you'd be finishing, and I decided I was in no condition to drive or ask my wife to drive me back to the finish area.
yeah.
But it was incredible. Like I've been there. I've been in your shoes, and that's just it's easy to show compassion when you've experienced it yourself. So and I know what that felt like, and you kept saying, "Oh, my glutes aren't firing. I can't climb," and it was I know it was a big challenge. It really was. It was. I mean, that's a huge route. Especially having all the mountains that we have and the technicality, as you described, there's so many technical sections that slow you down. It's a tough course. You could put that thing in ultra pacer and it would be way off, just because it doesn't understand the technicality of those trails. But yeah, it was fun to be with you. Incredible experience. It was just nice being out and then enjoying your company. Be it as tired as you were, I did enjoy my day. So, but congratulations for finishing it. We're still working on getting the FKTs up for you. I hope that does work out. I know that's
Well, yeah, it's really sad that so I did the 100 miles was all on one track on my Coros, my regular Coros. Because luckily I know what the alert sounds like when the battery's going low on that. But with the Vertex 2, I was just really surprised that it did that, and it didn't really give me an alert. I remember it beeping one time, but it was the same beep that it would give me whenever it was saying I was off trail, off course. So I was like, oh, this stupid thing's telling me I'm off course, and that was probably my warning, but I didn't know. So luckily, like the first 100, the Gritchell is all on one. I submitted that last week. Victor Mariano, oh my God, he was very graciously. I don't know how much time he spent working on it. Hopefully not too much, but he somehow he created the route on Gaia. He got like a good clean route with no mistakes or anything, because you have to submit a route to the FKT site, which I probably should have already done before I did this run, but I didn't think about it. I thought that I would have one clean route when I ran it. Well, and then I'm hoping that once he submits that route, I'll be able to submit all of my data, because between all of my data, it clearly shows that I did all 200 miles. Like I did the whole route. But I want to say, so I was really worried about like, oh, it took so long with Aaron and da 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 da. And I told Teresa, and Teresa was like, well, that's just payback from all from all his pacers and all this, all the stuff that he's put his pacers and crew through. I'm like, well, I don't think about it that way, but I just try to of people's time. And I hate that you had, because I didn't want you to see me break down like that and think that that's just how the whole run went.
Yeah, well, it's the human component, right? It's we're all human, especially that late in an event like this. We all have those moments, and we all have that, like I said, we all have that compassion because we've been there at some point, and we just want to make sure we do what's best for you and get you, and that's what Teresa and I kept texting behind your back.
Well, and then,
finish.
but after, so funny, like some things just don't even matter, after running 200 miles and putting yourself through that. Like, I was talking to Nathan, that, from the URC, his birthday was on the 6th. Well, his 50th birthday was on the 16th. His first birthday was on the 17th. But anyway, and we were talking about that briefly, just after you've done something like this, a lot of other things just seem so trivial, and like some things just don't matter as much. And I'm not going to go so far as like, well, racing doesn't matter or whatever, but like I have some things on the books, but I don't have anything that I couldn't not go through with. And like, I wouldn't regret if I didn't do it, if that makes sense. Like, I've been trying to spend more time with, my family, and, I'm happy now that I actually get vacation time, so I can actually, with my job, where I can actually take a little bit of time off and not have to worry about not getting paid, because then I can spend more time, like with my grandson that you saw me pass. I really enjoy that, and it's all this other, like, it's just running, and it's very enjoyable, and it's good for my mental health. But in the grand scheme of things, it's, I don't know.
You're right. It's just running. It's a great
Right.
part of our lives, but it doesn't control our lives.
Right.
Yep.
This
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It was also about like being able to spend time with people that I don't get to spend time with, and, experience things with people that I don't normally get to, because, well, for one, I don't get weekends off typically. So like, I don't get to see all you guys. Like, I don't get to do the group runs. So that's why I was super excited to see you and Teresa. And I always love seeing Mara and Laura and Mark. I guess they are kind of one person. So you could just say like Mara or Lark. Paul and Kevin, they're crazy. And it's always nice to see Charles. And then, well, I see Russ every day, but it's still nice to know that he supports me, and and I hope that he knows that I support him. And so anyway,
That's a beautiful way to wrap it up. So congratulations, ma'am. I'm very happy for you that you got the finish, and I hope it all works out with the FKT website, because it's an amazing route, and that you establish something I hope other people can go after, because that's man. I don't know if I'd be going after it, but but awesome. That was a great narrative, Natalie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congrats, Natalie. What a amazing, outstanding effort that was, to see, that load that you went through, and how you fought through it. I can only just give you my hearty congratulations, because, oh man, I know what you went through, and that was amazing. I'm so proud of you, and so proud of that effort. So great job to you. I'm going to keep my comments short. Usually I kind of go on and talk about everything that's going on. But I'm just going to keep it to the conversation with Natalie today, and just say thank you guys for listening. Thank you for being a part of the podcast. Hopefully I'll be feeling better next week, and I'll catch up you guys on everything else. But my gratuity to all of you. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. And next week I'll be back. So until then, keep moving forward, my friends.